And welcome back to the weird and the wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. And we are once again here to talk the supernatural and the paranormal. And as per always, we are going around the world looking at what we can see that is strange and different in different cultures and different countries that can expand our knowledge of the paranormal and supernatural and entertain us just a little and possibly give us something to think about and, if we are lucky, to find something that is suitably creepy. Welcome to you guys who have just joined in. It's great to have you with us. And we're going to start off with our usual housekeeping. Cheers to you. I hope you're suitably warm in this cold weather and that you have got a decent cup of something to drink. And we're actually going to be going on today with what we were going to do last night, but we got so caught up in what we were doing. We had such a great live that we never actually even got onto the topic at all, which is pretty cool. We're still going to do it, so why not? So remember, like, share, subscribe, do all of the good things that will let us keep this channel going and add to our amusement each evening. And remember, we have only one rule on the channel: please be polite. You can agree, you can disagree, you can absolutely comment, and are welcome to do that. Hey there, Moketsi. Good to have you here. And I see that George is back, and Hakuna Gaming is back, and Kanyo is back. And Louisa van Rensburg is back. Fantastic, fantastic. Great to have you guys on board. So today's topic is going to be the Ukraine. And hey there, Swiss. The Ukraine, of course, is one of the Slavic countries. Swiss, hi. And FT Kumu, welcome, welcome. It is a very, very large country, the third largest country in Europe. So a very old country with a great many interesting stories and things. What kind of contact do we do? What we do is we go from country to country and culture to culture, and we look at the supernatural and the paranormal with an aim to see what we are talking about and what might be out there. Is it something that we should worry about? Is it not? Is it real? Can we find some just pretty cool stories? It does vary, of course. But I think the Ukraine is going to be a good one. It's a very old country with a lot of cool places to talk about, which I am quite keen to look at. So I think it's going to be a decent one. Ghosts, yes, but not only ghosts. Cryptids as well. And the interesting thing, to give everybody a little bit of a recap, we have in fact discovered a number of things. Number one, the way ghosts seem to act in every country and culture that we have covered thus far, while they're explained differently and obviously culturally, if you will. Um, Nevertheless, the descriptions of how they seem to act is remarkably identical. We also cover cryptids, of course, and there are a great many, but there's one or two that seem to keep turning up. And of course, there are types and ranks for each, which is rather cool. And we have an added bonus in that we are also going to be referencing the jinn, which seem to turn up with different explanations in a number of different countries and cultures that are utterly unrelated, which makes it very interesting. We are talking ghosts, sir, young JB. That is what we are talking. Ghosts and cryptids. Cryptids, for those of you who don't know, are those things which many people believe are real and do exist, but science has no evidence or proof thereof. Um, so it does change the situation just a little, but it's a lot of fun. So, the Ukraine. What can we talk about the Ukraine? Well, as we say, we know, of course, that politically and the rest of it, it's a place of note at the moment for various reasons, but not our topic. Our topic is the hauntings, the strange and the weird and such like. And we have a number of different places and hauntings to talk about, including castles like Olesko and Pirirsti, the Vinnytsia Psychiatric Hospital, and the Dead Lake. So, a number of interesting places to talk about, which I think is going to be quite interesting. And of course, jump in and uh, absolutely give your opinions as we go along. As I say, all you have to do is be polite. That is all we require. And as I do warn you, anyone that is disruptive and not polite will, of course, get the boot, because that's what we do. We're here for the enjoyment of it and the pleasure of the company of all of you guys. So let's at least keep it nice, and I'm sure that we will have a great evening yet again. So the first and most important place that I came across in my research for this particular live is in fact Pirhirtsi Castle, um, which is located in the Lviv region, famous for legends and ghostly tales, and especially the story of Maria Zevuska, who is said to haunt the castle. Olesko Castle is another fascinating one. Historical, absolutely. Haunted, apparently so. Now, we know, of course, that when it comes to ghosts, if you're looking for them, the top places, we started with talk about skinwalkers. Okay, interesting there. They do come up in more than one culture, and we may find one in the Ukraine. Most of the traditional types of skinwalkers seem to be an American phenomenon, um, but we shall see what we can find. They class as a kind of cryptid, but yeah, we can touch on them as well as we go along and what have you, because they are a fascinating creature, no doubt. So certainly we can look into that. By and large, the four top places, much thanks for the likes there. We always like likes. Uh, the top places for ghosts to appear: battlefields, obviously, because you get a lot of people dying on battlefields. That's why they're battlefields. Hospitals, because, well, sad to say, especially in the older days, a lot of people did indeed die in hospitals, and there were many hospitals that were set up not because they could cure you, because at the times they couldn't, but rather because they were there to ease your final days, which is quite tragic, but nevertheless. Um, Roads. Roads are a top one because, well, yes, you get a lot of accidents, especially in the modern age. And then our fourth, which almost forced its way in, if you will, um, are museums. Now, why would this be? Well, for a ghost to form, at least according to what we have understood thus far from going around the world, you have to have a lot of strong emotion at the time of death. The stronger the emotion, the more powerful the ghost, and that ranks the ghosts in varying ways. And as you can imagine, if you're in the middle of a war on a battlefield, your emotions are probably pretty high. So, anger is certainly a good way to cause a ghost, but also tragedy. Essentially, the person becoming said ghost has to have a sufficient emotional attachment or reason to stay behind and not move on. So, if you are somebody that passes on in a way that you're like, okay, I've had my life, it's cool, I'm ready, um, right there, of course, you will just move on. It will not be a problem. Um, and you will not become a ghost, which is why, logically, over the centuries and centuries of human existence, a great many people have passed on, but very few of them ever become ghosts. And that's why, which makes sense, does it not? Um, so we have a top four ranking of places. Now, why graveyards? We'll cover that just again very briefly and point out that in the past, especially when medicine really was not very good, there were often occasions where somebody might appear to have passed, but it didn't, and therefore their place of death was a graveyard. However, we have established that if there is a reasonably strong reason for somebody to be attached to a specific place, then they might go to that place. Why it might be, we're not sure, but there are varying reasons, of course, and we can explain more if need be, but by and large, I think we should get going and talk about. But let's very briefly just pull up a little bit of info for young JB, and we're going to briefly just touch on skinwalkers. Just for the fun of it, and just to give a little bit of um, background, because you see what I tend to find, especially with cryptids and with ghosts to a certain degree, you must remember that all stories are told by people, and therefore are told from their cultural viewpoint and perspective, and there are ways that they do that. But the base description, if it is a thing, would or should remain basically the same. So, for example, the jinn, which we often talk about, are described as such, particularly from a Muslim perspective. However, in other cultures, similar such creatures are spoken of. They're just not called that, and they're described or explained, rather, a little differently. So it's eminently possible to spot various kinds of cryptids in various cultures. So, what is a skinwalker? Well, the original lore of skinwalkers actually comes, as I say, from the United States, and specifically and especially from Navajo folklore. And they are not ghosts, they are not spirits, actually, which is quite cool. They are people. However, they are not nice people. So all skinwalkers are bad. And here is why. They are called in Navajo Yinadalushi, which basically means he who goes on all fours. And of course, that refers to their ability to move in animal form. They are very feared, and they are associated with dark magic and evil intentions. They are a kind of witch, so to speak. They have the ability to shapeshift into various different animal form. And you might say that, hey, hold on, I've heard of such things in other names in other cultures, and you might very well be right. Hey, Jasper, welcome, welcome. They are always malevolent. They are never good, no matter what. The specific kind of cryptid or creature is absolutely not a good one. Now, how do you get them if they are actually people? Well, the answer is that you become a skinwalker. Now, usually it seems that you have to do certain things, particularly evil things, which causes you to become so corrupt that you become this evil creature. Now, different legends are various in that regard. Some say it has to do with cannibalism, eating other people. Others say that it has to do with the murder of your own family. But it's clear that in every uh, specific, it's something pretty awful. Now, they are spoken of among the Navajo in contrast to proper medicine men and healers who gain their powers in order to help the community, etc., etc. Whereas in the Skinwalker's situation, they are in it to win it and will not do that. And once they become sufficiently corrupted, they physically transform into a warped humanoid creature, which will hide out elsewhere. But where they can, they will take a human for the consumption thereof. So among the Diné, which is of course what the Navajo call themselves, um, it has to be a heinous act. So heinous meaning something really, really bad. They are considered to be a witch of some kind. You will find that the stories will tell you that you will see an animal running along and then it will suddenly change into a bipedal kind of creature. Um, Now, which is just by the by, in Diné culture, is not a female term. It's male or female. They are supposed to be incredibly fast. Now, they also point out that this is not a curse. I can't turn you into a skinwalker. It's a voluntary thing resultant from what you did. Okay, they are very, very strong as well. They can imitate human voices and animal sounds of all kinds. So you might hear your father calling you, only it's not really your father. They are able to influence the thoughts of others, which is particularly creepy. They can cast curses. But the thing that really shows them for what they are is, of course, the fact that they have glowing eyes. Um, so that's essentially your skinwalker. They are very bad. They have the ability to cause bad luck uh, on individuals and communities, and essentially that they say that you will know one is around because you can feel um, intense fear or unease when they are nearby, the presence of true evil. So there you go. That is what a skinwalker is. And as we are bouncing around our stories of the Ukraine, let's see if they have anything that is even similar to that, that might show that the idea of these creatures exists not only in Navajo culture, but even in other places. But we are going to start more with the ghosts because we always start with the ghosts. And we are going to particularly start with Pirhirtsi Castle. Pirhirtsi Castle, reputation for being very, very haunted, and it has served many roles throughout its existence. Um, it was built really quite a long time back. Um, as I say, you will find it in Lviv in the Ukraine. Um, it was built by some pretty famous architects, which was kind of amazing. Built in the 17th century, around 1635 to 1640. So it's been around long enough to have a very good history. It was built specifically as a leisure castle more than any other kind. So while it does have a number of defenses on it, it was never intended to be a war castle, and therefore it does not look like your traditional sort of square grey box with battlements. It's much more like a nice house, and it was used for centuries uh, for big parties and all sorts. But over the years, and in many of its really, really fancy halls, um, it got used in a lot of different uh, ways until eventually it became abandoned and empty. It's had a few restorations over its time, but nevertheless, what we are interested in is what can we find inside now? And the first one we get is one we have encountered in a lot of different countries, which makes it the kind of ghost that we can almost say is a common variety, and that is a woman in white. Um, I'm not entirely certain why they always seem to turn up, if there is something particular to them, but cultures that have no connection whatsoever to each other seem to all agree that women in white absolutely do turn up. Now, where did she come from? Well, according to the history, what they think is the origin is Maria Zewuska, wife of the duke that owned at the time the castle, and they say that she was walled in alive inside the castle because apparently that she was uh, infidelious, should we say politely. Of course, other stories say no, it was because she couldn't produce an heir, but nevertheless, she was walled in the castle, and ever since then, her ghost wanders the site, unable to leave. But she is not alone in there, and in fact, there's been a number of quite serious ghost hunting groups that have gone and checked it out and given their opinion. So it's turned up as quite a popular place. But they say that even beside Maria's ghost, there are several others from over the centuries that have appeared in this particular castle, and it's an interesting set of stories. Um, those that have been in there say that the ghost hunters managed even to get some photographs with a pale human silhouette that shouldn't have been there. There's also supposed to be a young girl that wanders the halls begging to be buried properly. Uh, but of course, nobody's sure who she is, and therefore she cannot get it. And according to a quite popular uh, Ukrainian ghost hunting group, they said that there were quite a lot of ghosts inside the castle. So if you're ever in Ukraine and you fancy encountering something creepy, that's one place you have to go to. Hey there, Bear. The next interesting place is the Viknaina Lake. Sorry, my Ukrainian is on the far side of zero. So if I butcher the words, I do apologize. There we go. Now, Viknaina Lake in central Ukraine. It's very popular apparently for fishing and picnicking around, but they say that no local will swim in it. And the reason for it, they say, is that if you actually look at the word that is used as its name, it comes from the Ukrainian word vikno, which means window. And they say that it will never freeze, even in the coldest weather, and the fish grow at an alarming rate. And in fact, the reason for it is that the lake is said to be um, a portal into another world, which I think is suitably creepy. I wonder what world it would be and what might be on the other side. Now, one of the big attractions while you're in Lviv is the Dominican Church. It's a unique historical monument, uh, a Baroque masterpiece, um, very beautiful, very historical, much to see, but also with certain weirdness attached. They say at exactly midnight, services begin in the dark and empty temple. The incredibly good acoustics serving to enhance the sound of a choir that isn't there. The services are held regularly and last for at least 3 hours. In the church library, densely packed books often fall from their shelves. There's the sound of an ancient typewriter heard tapping away. So, as beautiful as it is, if you don't like the creepiness, maybe you ought to visit it only during the day. So, I don't know, what do you think? Would you visit a haunted church? Would you attend a service that perhaps uh, is being held not by the living, but quite possibly by the dead? I don't know. I think it is absolutely something to consider, but not if you are faint of heart. I think that it might creep you just a little bit too much. But with that said, let us move along. So, our next spot. Okay, this one I'm going to butcher. Hromoverskia Meadow in Kupsiche. I really hope there's nobody that speaks Ukrainian on the live tonight. I know there sometimes is, but there you are. So, this small meadow has been invoking quite lively interest amongst scientists and researchers of the supernatural for quite a few years. Located near the village of Kupiske in northern Ukraine, it's surrounded by forest and it constantly attracts lightning during thunderstorms. According to the locals, um, a strange glow followed by a bright ray of light rises into the sky from this spot. Anyone that goes there immediately begins to feel a negative impact, depression, irritation, nausea, or fatigue. And locals just won't go there, especially if it's raining. Um, they say that a number of people that did, in fact, uh, go to check it out because why not? Ferdinand, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to have you with us. They say that people who have bravely gone to check this place out um, have in fact been struck by lightning. And they say, look, even if it's not supernatural, it really might not be that good an idea to go poking around in a place where you're likely to get zapped. Uh, so, yeah. Ferdy, can I remember you? Give me a clue there. Give me a clue. Wait, Ferdy from Joburg. Yes, of course. Hey, how are you doing? Wow, there's a blast from the past. How are you doing there? Are you good? I hope that you are in fine and fabulous form. In fact, funny you should say that because was it? Wait. Just to show that I have not forgotten. In fact, the shirt that I'm wearing today, because I needed a black shirt. Ta-da! So all is not forgotten, my friend. All is not forgotten. I'm glad you are breathing. Keep doing that. Failure in that regard generally doesn't go well. Fantastic to hear from you, and I'm glad to have you on board on the TikToks. That's really, really cool. So welcome, welcome. So yeah, if you don't know what I'm doing, I'm talking ghosts and supernatural around the world, and today's topic is the Ukraine. So I hope you enjoy such interesting and slightly scary stories. Nice. Okay, so the next place is the Ternopil Haunted House in the private sector in the Druzhba neighborhood. And of course, what did they do wrong? I will tell you what they did wrong. They broke the cardinal rule for avoiding ghosts by building the house on an old cemetery. Yeah, don't ever do that if you want to avoid ghosts. That right there is a good way to get ghosts. Disturbing cemeteries, that gives you ghosts. So, according to legend, as soon as the house was built, evil spirits settled into it. Um, Terrible screams, howls, and cries were heard from the house. Furniture moved by itself. Objects flew through the air, and at night, more cries of horror. Yes, you see, I'm still a night owl. Yes, I am, and I have never changed, and I probably won't. I do prefer the nights to the days. I won't admit I'm a terrible morning person. They say that the electricity in the house flickers on and off, even though it was not connected to the power grid. Now, a family moved in there, expecting to have a nice new house. And when they did, they discovered these abnormal horrors and they moved out pretty fast. And the house remained empty for quite a long time. Uh, but weirdly enough, it seems that the house has gained a new person to reside there. And what's interesting about it is that she seems to like the strange horrors within. So, hey, to each their own, I suppose. If you can stand uh, to live with ghosts, then good for you. But yeah, it takes all kinds, does it not? Now, I'm going to pop you up a picture of the house simply because it, it, it just looks like the kind of house that really and truly ought to be terrifying. Yeah, Ferdy, I did vanish very quickly, I will not lie. But I was on a mission, and I'm sorry that we didn't get a chance to say goodbye and everything, but I did that cardinal sin, as it were, and I fell deeply in love with the most gorgeous uh, woman ever, and I did not want to be in Joburg because she was all the way down in KZN, and I fled to be with her. And I must admit, I think it was the best decision I have ever made in my life. I am very, very happy. Now, behind me, I'm moving out of the way of the camera so you can check it out. That right there is the house, and as overgrown and everything as it is, you can see that it's a pretty creepy sort of a place with a corrugated metal roof and all. And that is the very haunted house that we speak of. So there you go. Much thanks for the likes. That's awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Now, we mentioned that ghosts need a lot of emotional energy to manifest, and they need to have, in many cases, have died in a way that was a bit rotten, simply because it promotes the right sort of emotional state for them to come back. And we said hospitals were at the top of our list, that is true, but what better than a psychiatric hospital? And we speak, of course, of Venezia Psychiatric Hospital. At the end of the 19th century, uh, this hospital was opened in the city of Venezia. But as was often the case in early psychiatric hospitals, um, they were not good. They were not conducive, shall we say, to health. And this one was no different. So let us see what we can find about this hospital. First of all, it was known for its cruelty and uncharted bloody methods of treatment. In this particular age of medicine, we know for a fact that things like electroshock therapy was common, water treatment, whereby you take freezing cold water and douse the patient in an attempt to shock them out of their mental ill health, and far worse. So it's not surprising that there is a certain amount of horror surrounding such places. Instead of providing patients with necessary medical care, doctors at this institution resorted to terrible and inhumane practices, and in some cases, um, just straight up experimentation. And indeed, even more fear came during the Soviet occupation, where the hospital became a place used for conducting experiments on people who did not please the government. Uh, During this period, a great many crimes against humanity were committed, and the tragic legacy that it has was quite terrible. But what has that meant for us? Well, it seems that if you go around this hospital, you can hear sobs and whispers and strange upsets in the dark when crying patients that died a long time back cry out still in the halls. And it's said that there are certain places where you may be shoved or struck by something that isn't there. Weird lights, strange shadows upon the walls, and more. Definitely the sort of place that will creep you out properly. Zevakova Mountain. Odessa has a wonderful charm, but is shrouded in legends, stories, and myths. And Zevakova Hill or mountain was once called by the Cossacks, a group known for their fierce courage, the Long Grave. And it's named after Major General Ivan Zevakov, and his estate, stands there still on one of the slopes of this mountain. It's about 40 meters above sea level with magnificent views of Odessa. And in fact, in ancient times, there was even a Greek settlement here. Makes for a very interesting sort of a place. Welcome, welcome to all of you new people who've just joined us now. I hope you enjoy the creepy, because that is exactly what we are talking here. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and all the more. Join our channel. We talk most nights of the week, so I hope you like this. So this place was one of incredible supernatural power, according to the stories, strong enough that some people that stayed there even went completely insane. Others it affected in such a way that they became clairvoyant. If you try to use a compass on the grounds here, it just doesn't work. And many people have lost their way, wandering for hours trying to find a way out. Why is all of this? Well, they say that this place is a meeting spot for witches and occultists, evidenced by some gruesome artifacts that have been discovered, such as disemboweled animals and various elements of black magic. And they say that this has made a place so darkly terrifying that nobody should ever visit for too long, just in case. Now, the next interesting place is in the depths of Schola Beskidi, among the dense forests and picturesque mountain peaks. You have one of the most mysterious places in the Ukraine. known as the Dead Lake. It is a problem for a lot of reasons. One of those reasons is the fact that, in fact, nobody really knows how deep the lake goes. They say that the waters have supernatural properties. It has a deep, deep, dark bottom that goes ever down, filled with rotten and old tree trunks and more, making it dangerous to go on. There's a floating island in the center of the lake, um, which makes it even more mysterious. It's very picturesque, and they say that quite beautiful but somehow disturbing. So, what is down there, and is it as bad as people say? They say that if you try to swim there, you may never leave the water. If you are not careful, you may get sucked down to depths that are just a little too deep. Sounds good to me. Okay, our next one. Olesko Castle, another castle, and as we know, they are up at the top of our list because where you get castles, you get battles, and where you get battles, you get ghosts. Now, Olesko Castle, unsurprisingly, is in the village of Olesko. Uh, Incredible architecture, great historical significance, and many ghosts. According to legends told by locals, a young man, Adam, committed suicide shortly before his wedding by stabbing himself in the heart in front of his fiancée and other witnesses. His suicide was not only a terrible shock to everybody, but a sufficient tragedy that filled the walls with dark energy. No one seems to quite understand why a man just before he was about to have the happiest day of his life might have suddenly and for no apparent reason taken his own life, but he did. And now within the castle, not only is his ghost seen to wander, there is also the Black Monk. Nobody seems to know where this monk came from, but they say that many have noted a man in black robes wandering the corridors and underground passages within the castle. It's just two of a number of ghosts said to wander inside. And let's face it, if you've got hidden underground passages, that's just asking for ghosts. I wonder where the monk comes from and what he wants to do. The next one is in Pidkamin village, and it is a nice little village in the Lviv region among one of the popular places to visit for what is known as the Devil's Stone, a 16-meter high stone with a heart-shaped big hole and 6 other holes going through it. And it is said it was once used in pagan rituals. It is said to have been brought from the Carpathian Mountains by the devil himself, who had his own reasons for bringing it. But as the devil was bringing the stone, a rooster crowed, startling the devil, and he dropped the stone and disappeared. They say that never go near the stone at night. It was a place where sacrifices were made, and nowadays there is a cemetery set up near it as well. They say that there are definitely ghosts and more that can be seen around the stone. So do be careful of what might remain. Who knows what dark gods were worshipped? So, don't know. Now, the next interesting spot we've got is, in fact, another mountain, Lysa Hora in Kiev. Lysa Hora's legacy comes again from pagan rituals that were done on the site. And Lysa Hora apparently means bald mountain, bald like me. It was also used as a place of execution. And archaeologists' finds confirm that ceremonies there lasted right up until the 10th century. And during the Cossack era, it served as a gallows. Modern visitors experience sudden colds and deep feelings of unease near the execution site. Geological surveys in 2018 recorded very strange, irregular electromagnetic fields that gives the place a deeply unsettling energy that makes it not that wonderful to visit at all. But definitely for the brave, interesting, because many died angry. And of course, when they speak of pagan rituals, you can imagine that they involved the passing on of unwilling victims as well. So there are many spirits left traumatized. So as you can imagine, that's a standard, if you will. But nevertheless, despite all these things that have occurred, it's a remarkable place to visit. But if you are looking for ghosts, that would be the place. Bilhorod Dnistrovsky Fortress, which has the much simpler name as well of the Ackerman Fortress. It's a 13th century fortress and one of the most bizarre of the haunted places in the Ukraine, both for its military history and for its cryptid sightings. Since the 1950s, locals have reported strange, foul-smelling humanoids appearing at night. Ukrainian researcher Ivan Petrovich recorded 17 incidents from 1999 to 2005, noting a particular sulfur-like odor. The site has a 2-kilometer long underground tunnel system, mostly uncharted due to structural risks, adding to its rather ominous reputation. These chilling observations continue, nevertheless, to attract the dedicated investigators of the paranormal, and nobody seems to know what these weird cryptids are. But to give you an idea, as was asked in the beginning of the video, what about skinwalkers? Well, amongst other things, the stench of either sulfur or of rotting meat accompanies such strange humanoids as skinwalkers. So perhaps here again we have found something in common. Maybe there are skinwalkers there too. You never know. But as we go along and touch on the strange and the supernatural, we of course have to cover a cemetery. I mean, come on. Ghost cemeteries, which doesn't make a lot of sense in many ways, because unless things go badly wrong, you shouldn't die in a cemetery. But Likakiv Cemetery, known for having around 400,000 graves. Yeah, that's enough, I think. Established in 1787, the tombs feature intricate Victorian designs, but night guards there note shifting shadows, particularly near the Uprising Memorial. And here's an added little bonus. According to certain paranormal experts, uh, the soil there is very rich in quartz, and as we know, crystals affect energy. That's a scientific fact. And of course, in the terms of the supernatural, crystals very much are said to both channel and store energy, which may result with why you get that many hauntings, because of course ghosts absolutely do need energy to manifest, and it would seem in fact that having this much quartz in the soil in a cemetery of this size, you're practically making a ghost sink. Obviously there is a huge amount of history there, um, but they say that if you do visit, not only will you get all of these strange shadows, uneasy feelings, you will also encounter weird lights, appearing orbs, and ghostly apparitions, and you may hear the sound of speaking among the tombs when nobody else is there. So, a properly haunted site indeed, which I think is well worth it. Now, amongst other things, in Kiev, you have catacombs. And I mean, come on, catacombs have to be haunted, right? And true to it, the Kiev catacombs are around 300 kilometers of tunnel network that run beneath the capital, once serving as bomb shelters for the Cold War. Explorers' voices echoing through 1960s era uh, concrete passages um, are apparently not from this time, that you can hear people speaking, shouting, and doing things when nobody else is down there. And a 2019 urban team captured EVP recordings uh, of people using Soviet military terms, even though the tunnels have been sealed since 1991. It seems that the soldiers down there might not all have left. The underground maze is an absolutely historical and fascinating place, but more so in that the number of eerie encounters is quite high, and one wonders what secrets are held deep within the ground. The next interesting place is the Tarakaniv Fort, um, one of the top haunted locations in the Ukraine, an abandoned 19th century Russian imperial stronghold. It has not just hauntings, but poltergeist activity, and conservationists that have been there to try to preserve and more report mysterious tool disappearances and reappearances during restoration work. Its distinctive acoustic properties enhance the sounds within it, and often people have said that it sounds like you're being followed, and you can't tell if it's merely an echo or if something really is. The whole eventually gives you a very eerie atmosphere that is quite captivating for those interested in the ghostly. And it seems that there is definitely something down there um, that perhaps you might want to be careful about. The next interesting place is Kust Castle, an 11th century fortress renowned for the legend of the Weeping Maiden. This tale is linked to the 1241 Tartar invasions, during which the Castellan's daughter is said to have leapt from the castle walls to avoid capture. Visitors have reported hearing sorrowful cries echoing through the ruins, which are believed to be her lingering spirit. It has a tragic past, and as such, an atmosphere of sorrow whereby perhaps the young lady that was forced to take her own life never left. The next interesting place is the stone village, Rudnia Zamoslovetskaya, where the petrified village legend endures. Despite many attempts to explain it scientifically, locals have witnessed shadowy figures amidst the 30-million-year-old sandstone formations at dawn. Um, EMF readings at night spike up to 300% higher than daytime levels. It is, of course, a geological marvel and a historical site well worth the visiting thereof. But as you can imagine, the strange ghosts, which may well, in fact, be prehistoric ghosts, make it even more interesting and astonishing. But as somebody once asked me, is it possibly true that you only get old ghosts? What about modern ghosts? Well, modern ghosts we have, because one such place is the Chernobyl exclusion zone, um, which of course is the town of Pripyat, an abandoned nuclear city where radiation ghosts manifest as transient thermal signatures captured by cleanup crews. Dosimeter readings unexpectedly spike at certain locations despite extensive decontamination efforts. In 2016, intact newspapers were discovered in the Pripyat hotel, defying uh, any of the weathering they ought to have had. It seems that not only might there be radioactive ghost remnants, but somehow time itself has been messed, and things from the past have come forward, leading some to worry that if you went to the wrong bit, might you vanish into the past. So there's a modern haunting for you. Upensky Cathedral in Kiev, a 1078 religious site whose catacombs display mysterious light phenomena during Orthodox holidays. Restoration workers in 2003 uncovered 12th century books containing exorcism rites, deepening their lore of how things were done back in the day. Infrared cameras repeatedly capture unexplained light orbs near the St. Matthew iconostasis. Um, this venue continues to attract both pilgrims and paranormal researchers, and is a blend of both the sacred and the terrifying, an intersection, if you will, of faith and the supernatural. Hey Mundlosa, welcome back. Glad to have you here again. So, yes, it does appear, in fact, that holy ground can be haunted, but by what and why? As we move along, we have done a great deal on the ghosts, and it is time to touch on the cryptids. And we have the Vovkulaka, the Upir, and more. And some of them will, in fact, prove to be familiar, which may imply, given that they turn up in completely separate countries and cultures, um, might indicate they could be real. Hey, Mundosa, that sounds suitably creepy. Tell us about it. What happened? Give us an indication. Would you like to do it in text as a comment, or would you like to come on the live? Either as suits you. I would like to hear more about that. Because, as we well know, a number of supernatural and paranormal events are said to cause such things. And I would be very, very keen to hear your comments on that. As we are moving along and waiting for finding out if our good friend is going to share, let's talk about what we are encountering in terms of cryptids. Now, a number of these things are going to be common. Okay, so there we go. A decent sleep, listening to a suitable frequency to assist with that sleep, and as a result, 3 a.m. Now, here's a thing for you which you may find interesting. You've probably heard the phrase the witching hour, which is when the most supernatural is supposed to occur, and not, oddly enough, is it midnight. In fact, it is somewhere between 2 and 3 in the morning. So, your thing that happening at 3 a.m. seems to certainly fit with that, and with a numbness to the body and an apparition. Yeah, I do like to hear that. And yes, in many cases, you will find that you seem to be both asleep and awake. And yes, Moonglosa, you are not alone in that at all. Um, I too, of course. So there you are. So, what was the apparition of? Was it one you recognized? I know in a past live, our friend here has, for the sake of the rest of you, uh, pointed out that she is experiencing a haunting in her house. Um, yes, Moonlosa, it is my pendant. Yes. So there we go. Are we back? Yeah, there was a bit of a dip there. But we're back. Yes, we lagged, I'm afraid. I don't know why. We haven't had that problem here before, but then I'm not actually at home. I went on a brief holiday down the coast and I'm staying with friends, so I'm on their Wi Fi. So I don't know how consistent the fiber is down this side, unfortunately. But no, it's been perfect up until now. But there we go. I'm back. I'm back. So, what was the apparition that you saw? Tell us more. Oh, I'm absolutely enjoying very, very much. Um, Partly because I live up near the Drakensberg, and at the moment it is freaking cold there. So we toddled it down to the coast to enjoy a bit more warmth, and I can assure you it is much better. A male figure, um, tall and dark. Oh, J-Bay is lovely. I love that place. So I must say, I hate to be negative about my gorgeous country, but after all the stories that they told me about the surfing in Jeffreys, I did go visit because I used to be a surfer back in the day, and the waves were crap. I'm sorry. I'm used to the waves of Izinkwazi, and they are way, way better. But then I'm biased. But yeah, a male figure is interesting because in your previous description, um, you pointed out that you are haunted by a lady. So it seems you have a secondary person, and definitely it is a case for applying some different means. And an interesting fact, here you go. The place where I'm staying, where my friends have just moved in, obviously won't give location, um, but it seems it's haunted. And one of the uh, things that they asked me, because obviously I do this live, was, well, what do we do about it? It seems that we have a ghost in the house. And the answer is, of course, there are two things which are quite effective, which I do intend to help them do. The first is you mix rosemary or rosemary oil with coarse salt, and you sprinkle it at the corners of the house, uh, which drives away negative spirits. And then, of course, the second thing, which is very effective, is you draw in positive energies using um, white sage, which helps a great deal. So, yeah, it's definitely something that has a good effect on a home on a great many levels, and using them in conjunction I find to be very, very effective. Um, yes, Munlosa, I think when you start getting into this stuff, at least on a small way, we all are. We all end up getting involved with the herbs and the minerals and the crystals and the this and the that purely because, well, it's part and parcel, isn't it? So absolutely, that's something that we can expect. And what's interesting, of course, because being in South Africa, my initial education in the matter came from Valley of a Thousand Hills, from the Zulu culture. And so some of the stuff is very much South African that I use. But of course, again, um, I did quite a bit of research into my greater ancestors and what have you. And I have links both to the Gallic areas of France and to England in quite a strong way. And so I did quite a bit of study and research into the old ways in both those places. So I have a very mixed bag of things done and how they are done and what have you. So weird in that regard, but it works for me. And I think that's the most important bit thereon. Now, in terms of Vovkulaka, what is a Vovkulaka? A Vovkulaka is what the Ukrainians call a werewolf. Now, they are said most oftenly in the Ukraine to be more hairy in terms of if you see them in their human form. So, a particularly hairy person could well be such a thing. And their eyes might on occasion be slightly red. And I'm just looking at the screen and I can see myself and I notice mine have gone a little red. Should you be afraid? Um, yes, I love researching things. Research is one of my hobbies. And of course, once I touched on my own family history, which is actually pretty cool as it goes along, um, I did do a lot of research and I still do. And it is very interesting. Now, it seems that the Vovkulaka in the Ukraine are often known to be quite gloomy or depressive, even, which is kind of amusing because I'm immediately put in mind of the werewolf character in Hotel Transylvania, who is always so gloomy. And that fits just perfectly. But then, besides the Vovkulaka, you also have the Upir, which is the Ukrainian version of a vampire, um, which fits to the typical Slavic view of what a vampire is, very much the Count Dracula style. And I'm referring, of course, to the original descriptions from Bram Stoker. The next interesting thing that we are going to touch on will be the Mavka, a water spirit, similar to but not the same as Rusalka, which is the next one we will talk about. They also have the Trieste, which I think is going to be very interesting because you will recognize the description. You also have the Pesiholovets, which is a dog-headed giant, and the Kikimora, which interestingly, if you are a fan of computer games and have ever played The Witcher, or if you have ever read any of the original books, which were actually written, I believe, by a Ukrainian, then you will know the Kikimora. So let us begin. And our first creature to talk about is the Mavka. Mavka coming from the old Ukrainian word meaning the dead. And what does she look like? The most common image of Mavka is of a pleasant, well-dressed, long-haired young lady, uh, but who, if you see her from behind, has no skin on her back, so her inner organs are visible. They are portrayed with flowers in their hair and festive embroidered dresses, but they have no shadows and child-size footprints. She lives in the mountain caves of the Carpathians and in the forests over Ukraine, of which there are many. They are the souls of girls who died in unnatural ways, or of children who died without being baptized or during Mermaid Week, which is a time when, according to Slavic mythology, mermaids can roam the earth, and it is the week after Trinity. What does she do? Well, basically, she goes out of her way to attract young men and lead them into the forest, where they never come back. Weirdly, she said also to tickle her victims to death. And being a terribly ticklish person, I could imagine that quite easily. Um, Now, they have turned up in a number of bits of literature, such as the Lisova Pisnia and the novel Tini Zubcia Predkiv, Shadows of the Forgotten Ancestors, which are well-known books in the Ukraine. I have not read them. How do you stop her, however? Well, it seems that there are a number of things that work, chief of which is garlic. So, seeing as that works against quite a few things, it's probably good to have a bit on hand. Garlic, onion, horseradish, and lovage can be used to hold them off. Um, the next interesting one to talk about is the one I know you're going to recognize by the description. The Chuhaista literally translates as a forest man, depicted as a tall man with blue eyes and black or white hair all over him instead of clothing, often associating with a strong wind that breaks trees. And weirdly enough, the descriptions fit exactly to that of a Bigfoot. So it seems that our friendly neighborhood Bigfoot has been found in yet another culture and country. They are found all over the world, from um, the United States to Canada, to the Ukraine to Russia, to even Portugal and more. And it seems that this creature lives out in the forest. He is a cheerful character, enjoying dancing and hunting mavkas, uh, but he does not harm people. And sometimes, if you sit around a fire in a forest with good company and good music, he may even join you. So, an interesting uh, little thing. Now, the next one is one that we encountered when we talked about Russia, and he is basically exactly the same thing, and that is the domovoy. Uh, Domovoy from the Ukrainian and I think also Russian word meaning home, a short, gray haired old man with bright eyes. And it is said they are in pretty much all homes. He will move in. Some say he's an ancestor, others say he's a household spirit. And as a household spirit, um, he will protect the family to whom he belongs, um, as long as they respect him properly and leave him the right gifts and food. He protects the home from different kinds of tragedies, thieves, fire, forces of nature, and more. And it's always good to look after your domovoy. Very caring for children and animals and looks after them, and may well even do uh, chores around the house if you are a good person. The next interesting one um, is the P Baba, basically a babai. He doesn't have a clear physical form, but he's usually depicted as an old man in ragged clothes and a big bag and creepily long claws. He likes to hide under beds, in wardrobes, or in empty rooms. He is a night spirit that visits naughty children who will not go to bed, and they say he puts them into his bag and takes them away to never be seen again. So be a good child, or Babai will come and get you. The next interesting one is the Vidma witch. The Vidma witch is a female witch identified particularly by her ugliness or her um, disability, such as a lameness or a humpback, or having a distinctive, unusual trait like red hair or being left handed, sorry for you all, or having extraordinary beauty. And they live almost anywhere, though they prefer rural areas over cities. And she is essentially a witch who can control the weather, uh, control romance, and help or harm as she wills. Her skills can be inherited or gained through agreements with spirits, though inherited witches are more powerful. She can travel on a broom, an antler, or on a poker, apparently. Um, and they're quite a common theme of stories. Um, but the way to stop her is to make lines of poppy scenes or chalk near entrances and put nettles and aspen, maple, and birch leaves in doorways that will ward off any of the evil ones, which is always a good way to manage such things. Now, the next one is our upir, which comes from the word actually in Greek, upros, which means unburned. And the upir is, of course, the vampire. Um, they are noted to be quite different, and as being an undead, where do they live? They live in cemeteries. He comes at night and sometimes by the day to do harm to people, to drink their blood. Very often, an upir is a leader of a group of witches. Um, the way to get rid of an upir, uh, they say, is by burning him in his coffin, to ram an aspen stake through his heart, or to put silver on his forehead. But it might be a bit challenging because in the Ukraine, vampires have two hearts, so make sure you do the job doubly well. Of course, vampires are known um, throughout the Slavic states and are much nastier than what you get in the movies. A next interesting one, again, you will have encountered if you've played the game or read the books, uh, The Witcher, and that is a Vodyanoi. Vodyanoi comes from the Ukrainian word vodya, meaning water. Vodyanoi is a generally in nice stories, not in The Witcher, a fat old man with a fish tail tangled in ooze with a long thick beard and a green moustache. He can turn into a catfish, goat, a dog, or a cat, and more. And he lives in the waters, in rivers, lakes, and ponds, and often will settle under mills. Um, he herds catfish, carp, and bream, and other fish that graze at the bottom of rivers and lakes. And he commands mermaids and other water inhabitants. This particular waterman is capable of flooding rivers, breaking dams and mills, drowning livestock and people, capsizing boats, and extinguishes any fires lit on the banks. And it is said that if you want to see one and possibly make it very upset, you go down and light a large fire on the bank of a river so that it will come out. Mostly they come out after sunset, and they may very well drag people underwater to drown them. Uh, Usually, it seems his main targets are drunkards. So, there you go. To appease him, people in the past sacrificed goats, roosters, honey, bread, and other goods, throwing them into the water. The next interesting thing is a zildni, from the word meaning poverty, and they are little old men dressed in rags, small, nasty creatures that look almost cat or dog like. They wear big boots and hats with ear flats, and they live under masonry stone. If they start to live in your house, um, you will quickly become poor and cannot earn money. They are kind of like the reverse of a domovoi, and they will make a big mess in the house and damage everything in it. The way to get rid of them is to lure them into a bottle or container of some kind and then close it sharply and either bury it or throw it away. Thereafter, you will get rich again. But if somebody releases the spirits, they will then stick to that person and settle in their house. So there you go. An interesting collection of cryptids in that regard. Um, the next interesting one is the Mara. And the Mara is literally from the same root word as mare, from which in English we get the word nightmare. And that is exactly what the Mara causes. The Mara causes like a bad dream and confuse your mind. Um, it is a kind, I suppose, of an incorporeal witch or some kind of manifestation that you will encounter when you are not really awake and not really asleep. Um, in the intermediate state where the dead live in the dreams of the living, and they are said to be quite terrifying, and they are not liked at all. And in fact, there are many traditions around the Slavic countries where they will burn an effigy of her to ward her off. Now, the next interesting one is called a V. Now, the V is a gloomy old man with eyelids that sag to the ground, preventing him from seeing, usually. But should he raise his eyelids to see, his view is cursing. Among the Ukrainians, he is considered to be the chief of the gnomes. Um, and quite a worrying character in that regard. Um, he can bring destruction and ruin merely by his cursed sight. Uh, Things like the evil eye and the jinx are related to this creature. So the lore of the evil eye is well versed and accepted, and many Ukrainians will wear a red thread amulet on their wrist to ward them off. Now, what other horrifying and awful creatures can we talk about? We have done the vampires, we have done the Chuhaista, we have done the werewolves and more. Um, and we are now on to the Pisihorovets, a monstrous man-eating giant that seems to have come from the Greeks. A huge man with a dog's head and a single eye in the middle of its forehead. Some say that they may only have one arm and one leg, but either way, Pisiholovitsi are considered to have come from distant lands or unexplored parts of the forest. They are vicious, incredibly fast, and impossible to defeat, barbaric, uncivilized, and brutal. They would drink the blood of their enemies and capture people to throw them into deep pits and fatten them up before feasting on them. Large and terrifying in that regard. Now, our last creature that we are going to speak of is the Kikimora. What is a Kikimora? Well, a number of the Slavic cultures speak of this creature, and they have different descriptions of how it appears and more. In Romania, they are referred to as the moroi, and we encountered that when we did Romania. So the Mara, the Kikimara, are the version from the Ukraine, and it may have varied features with animal-like features on humanoid body, chicken beak, a goat-like face, a snout of a dog, glowing eyes and horns. But in fact, it can take any shape it really wants to. It is always female and can appear as an old woman or a beautiful young girl or even a deceased family member. The swamp Kikimora is usually described as small, ugly, hunchbacked, thin, and scruffy with disheveled hair, using moss and grass as clothing. She frightens people, knocks travelers off the road, and even drowns them, and of course, kidnaps children. It's a common belief that they can enter a room through the keyhole and sit on your chest and try to strangle you. So it's related in that regard to sleep paralysis. Um, so, to repel them, children are advised to turn their pillow and make the sign of the cross on it, or to face the window. People have said that you can repel them by leaving a broom upside down behind the door, or putting a belt on top of their sheets, or praying hard. There are two different kinds of kikimoras. One that comes from the forest, which is related to the domovoi, and one that comes from the swamp, that is related to the leshi. She can be identified by her wet footprints if she is from the swamp. When home builders wanted to cause harm to somebody buying a house, they would bring in a kikimora because they are sensitive. Um, So there are a lot of stories about them in Ukrainian um, society, and if your house is in good order, the kikimora will look after it. But if not, she will make noises and smash dishes to teach you to get on and do things properly. So look after your house if you want to avoid kikimora. And that concludes, my dear friends, um, the mysteries of the Ukraine, such as we have found. There is obviously a great deal more stories out there, but we cannot do all of them. And I think that has covered quite a few. We have found that there are yet more big feet around, that the ghosts absolutely act in the manner we expect them to. And the hauntings are particularly good. So I do hope you have enjoyed it. I do hope that you have learnt a little. And I will say to you, sleep well, sleep deep, have the most amazing night, but sleep with one eye open, just in case. And keep a holy object near at hand, because you never know. Sometimes those things that go bump in the night might well go bump for you.